space, the final frontier. These are the voyages of the Starship Enterprise. Its 5-year mission, to explore strange new worlds, to seek out new life and new civilizations, to boldly go where no man has gone before. Scotty, beam us up fast.
I can't change the laws of physics. I've got to have 30 minutes.
Fire all weapons.
I'm a doctor, not a bricklayer.
Live long and prosper.
Engage.
Fascinating.
40 years of being part of something excellent.
Powerful nostalgia, potent memories.
Amazingly important time in my life.
I don't know where sci-fi would have been if it hadn't been for Gene Roddenberry and Star Trek.
Very smart man, wasn't he?
Something about Gene Roddenberry's vision connected with an audience.
He wanted to say something through those stories, and a lot of popular entertainment doesn't even bother with that.
There are no programs that have been on for 40 years.
It was an exciting breakthrough opportunity.
We were ordinary people in extraordinary situations, going where no man or woman had gone before.
Hello, I'm Leonard Nimoy. On September 8th, 1966, the world got its first glimpse of the future. And now, 4 decades later, Star Trek continues to prosper, and its legacy is one of hope and perseverance. 5 television series, 10 motion pictures, and a universe full of memories. Star Trek has proved itself a viable piece of the human landscape. Here in this warehouse lies a storied history. It took a crew of hundreds of dedicated people to produce the various series over the years, and here, in this vast space, lie many of the objects which played an intricate role in that history. So it seems only appropriate that now, on this 40th anniversary, we let the most loyal fans in the history of television have an opportunity to own a piece of the future. Recently, Paramount Pictures teamed up with Christie's auction house. Together they put on an auction of galactic proportions, selecting over 1,000 of the most memorable and valuable items from the Star Trek franchise and making them available for the first time ever to the public. An adventure in itself. How did this happen? Why did it happen, and what were the results? Over the next 2 hours, we answer all these questions and give you some insight into the Star Trek universe as told by the very people who experienced it firsthand.
Alert status. We're being scanned, Captain. A deep probe, incredibly swift.
Back in 1966, I said, 40 years from now, I will be in New York City at the auction of Star Trek artifacts, and we will be anticipating the golden anniversary of Star Trek. No, of course, we had no idea that this was going to happen. As a matter of fact, the ratings were very, very low every season.
We were a failure. We hadn't been successful in attracting an audience.
I wish we had had more time because there were so many stories and development of characters that Gene wanted to do.
We were a canceled series. Gone, over, finished.
With less than stellar ratings, it seemed that this show about the future would quickly become part of the past. And after only 3 seasons, the series was canceled.
Star Trek was dormant for a number of years, and then finally got, as we called it, stripped, where it was on in reruns 5 nights a week, early enough for the kids to see it.
Captain, we are being watched. Are you sure? Intuition? No, sir. We're being watched.
Suddenly, Star Trek was some kind of a hit series.
And that's when Paramount began to say, oh, I think something's going on here.
Paramount began production of Star Trek the Motion Picture in 1978, assembling the original cast for the first time in almost 10 years. Star Trek's viability on the big screen continued with the wildly popular Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, a film which cemented Star Trek's legacy as a major force in the popular culture. Star Trek's success continued with the production of Star Trek 3 and 4, and finally closed out the decade of the 1980s with the release of Star Trek V, The Final Frontier. In 1991, Star Trek VI, The Undiscovered Country, would mark the end of an era as the original cast set one last adventure in the galaxy.
And I thought, if they're going out, and this is going to be, they're going to stop this, this would be the one to stop it, and blessedly it was. And then the next gen had been sold, and as we were doing the Star Trek VI, we were across the way, their trailers were over there, our trailers were here, and then we got to meet and greet everyone.
I think it was incredibly satisfying to Gene that after 20 years, he created another version of this mythical show that he had made in the 60s, and that it was successful. There were a lot of naysayers. There were a lot of people who said, this isn't going to work. It's not, you're not doing Kirk and Spock again. How dare you?
I was asked in the first year, how does it feel to be stepping into the shoes of Captain Kirk? And I had the presence of mind to say, excuse me, but Captain Kirk is still filling his shoes very, very adequately, as indeed Bill was. They were shooting a movie when we were starting ours. These guys were the originators of all of this, and what, in 3 seasons, what Bill achieved, what he established with that character, I think, towers over everything else. Just remember that I said that, Bill. The next time we decide who's paying for dinner.
When we first started on the show, we, meaning the actors in the show and Paramount, who produced the show, weren't sure of how an audience was going to, whether they were interested in embracing another version of Star Trek.
This is just another page in history, isn't it?
When we started hearing the buzz about another Star Trek series called Star Trek: The Next Generation, we were a little miffed because we thought we personified Star Trek. And Jimmy Doohan was particularly incensed by that. He said, we are Star Trek. Our chemistry, our personalities, our characters, what makes Star Trek what it is. The next generation is doomed to failure. He said, I'm not going to watch it at all.
What do you make of it?
I'm not quite sure.
Looking back now, because the show was so successful eventually, we kind of forget about the first season, and that people were not happy that we were on the air.
And they were reluctant, I think, to let another enterprise in the galaxy. And eventually, they embraced the idea of Captain Picard, and they embraced the idea that there were other officers in Starfleet, and we stayed on for 7 years and made 4 movies.
Next year would be our 20th anniversary of walking on that bridge for the first time, yes.
As you know, we could outrun the Klingon vessels, but we must protect the Enterprise C until she enters the temporal rift. And we must succeed. Let's make sure history never forgets the name. Enterprise. Got out. With the success of The Next Generation and Star Trek's continued popularity, Paramount launched its next series in the Star Trek franchise when Deep Space Nine premiered in 1993, led by the commanding and dynamic Avery Brooks as Captain Benjamin Sisko. Soon, a 4th installment followed, as actress Kate Mulgrew broke the mold playing Catherine Janeway, Star Trek's first female captain in the series Star Trek Voyager. With Enterprise, the series' 5th installment, the show's creators took Star Trek to the past, as Captain Jonathan Archer, played by sci-fi favorite Scott Bakula, and a whole new Enterprise crew found adventure in the galaxy 150 years before the days of Kirk and Spock.
There's just been, over the past 40 years, an incredible, insatiable thirst for Star Trek. And I think with each successive show, from Star Trek: The Next Generation to Deep Space Nine to Voyager to Enterprise, there was just always great anticipation. Each time we launched the shows, we delivered. Rick Berman delivered. Rick Berman and his co-writers and co-producers and talent behind the scenes delivered.
Star Trek's been around for 40 years, and during that 40 years, it's become part of the American mythos, part of the American nomenclature.
A lot of TV shows are lucky to go past 1 year, you know, and here we are on a show that it's in its fifth, you know, has had 5 incarnations of different Trek casts. It's truly amazing that even after 40 years, it's still that popular.
There are no programs that have been on for 40 years. And not only is that a long time, but as I said before, it's a thing that one generation shares with another generation. And there is no TV program like that.
Well, we are the sum of everything that has gone before, after all.
We have 10 movies and over 700 hours of television that they're all showing somewhere on any given day or week.
Around mid-90s, Star Trek was just insanely popular. And Kirk and Picard were on the cover of Time magazine, and there was a movie coming out of Next Generation, and Voyager was premiering, and Deep Space Nine was on the air. Just huge. It was great to be there, to be part of the ascension, of the reascension of the franchise.
A hell of a trek. How wonderful. 40 years.
Who'd have thunk it? Certainly not yours truly.
The odds against you and I both being killed are 2,228.7 to 1.
2,228.7 to 1? Those are pretty good odds, Mr. Spock.
And they are, of course, accurate, Captain.
Of course.
Since there's been commerce, there have been auctions. From the most intrepid of bidders looking to add to their vast collections, to the nostalgic hopefuls just trying to get their hands on a fond memory, auctions have been the platform of choice. The one commonality they all share is a desire to own a piece of what they consider near and dear to them. For some, it can be for investment. For others, an object which delivers a dream realized from days past. Either way, collecting is in our blood. It's a part of our culture. And this auction is no exception.
Sold to my bidder, $5,500.
Sold at $1,400.
Lots of interest in this.
Sold for $4,800.
Sold.
Christie's, I think, well, for this particular type of business, we are unique. We think it's fantastic for our profile. It brings in a lot of new buyers. It's a tremendous opportunity for PR. And it gives us a different dimension. And people come to us because I think, you know, we've done very successfully with these types of sales before.
But given that, just the massive opportunity that was presented by Paramount of saying, you know, look at all of this and this amazing amount of property that had been so carefully kept for decades, and then to understand that you could, you know, conceivably propose to them selecting some items from that and selling it to a community that maybe is even much more broad than what they consider the cult following of Star Trek. It's pretty great.
But why now, Mr. Spock?
I don't know.
And I think on the occasion of the 40th anniversary, it was looked at and thought, what better way to give back to the fans who are constantly wanting connectivity with this franchise was to actually own the physical pieces that they'd seen on camera is unprecedented and something that seemed very appropriate to do.
This day was inevitable. We all knew it. And we've all tried to prepare ourselves for the challenge ahead.
Right after Christmas, we were awarded the contract. Much to my shock and amazement and joy, and then to my horror and terror, because suddenly I knew we were in deep.
There was warehouse after warehouse of costumes, props, set pieces.
So we were a little bit shell-shocked, to say the least, thinking what have we got ourselves into.
I think it was pretty astounding once you actually saw the scope, the size.
Well, once we got the deal, then all of a sudden we looked around the room and thought, we don't really know anything about Star Trek. So that was sort of the next panic. And Paramount then introduced us to Mike and Denise Okuda, which was like a gift from the heavens.
Yeah, put it this way, anybody that can write the Star Trek encyclopedia certainly is equipped to be able to help Christie's put together an auction.
I mean, usually we have our own expertise in-house. which we can call on, but this is such a specialist area, and we needed somebody, well, both of them, to really help us with the detail and the knowledge that they've got. They are a tremendous asset, but it's unusual to work so closely with external consultants in that way.
Captain's log, stardate 2713.5. In the distant reaches of our galaxy, we have made an astonishing discovery. It seems impossible, but there it is. Any guesses, Mr. Spock? Any idea what happened down there?
I wish I could say, Captain. Circumstances were quite bizarre. However, our record tapes may show us something.
This is the Reliant from Star Trek II. This is the ship that Khan hijacked in his attempt to get revenge on Captain Kirk. It's been remarked and redone for any number of ships. So it's labeled as the Saratoga now.
This is all wardrobe, and we have to say it was so wonderfully organized. It's rows and rows and rows. It starts with Next Generation, Voyager, Deep Space Nine, Enterprise, Star Trek: The Motion Picture. I mean, you look at those things, they were made back in 1978. They were used. It goes on and on and on.
We're trying to figure out what a collector might find interesting, what a film museum might find interesting, what's interesting because it's beautifully constructed, what's interesting because it was important in an important episode, and what's just fun.
Hi, Andy Foster. How are you? Hi, Denise. How you doing? Hi, Mike. Andy Foster. Hi.
I started with Star Trek: The Next Generation, and I went through and pulled each cast member's Starfleet uniform. This is Captain Picard, Patrick Stewart, and picked what I thought to be the primo one. On and on and on. And then there was an episode called Q-Kid that a lot of fun costumes, Robin Hood type costumes. I pulled that. This is that collection. But what we did do to make sure, because it's very important that whoever will be purchasing these items has an authentic item, we would also not take this tag as gospel. You're
checking.
Yes, sir. We are checking. We are going through. We are looking at tags and making sure that this is the article. There.
Yeah. Was there anything on it?
No.
Symbol-wise?
No. I actually don't think this is it. I don't think this is. No, this is Finnegan's. This is not the same. This is not the same. Definitely.
Can you put one on? Yeah. Oh, and you've got a handlebar in here, so, and you have your. We're just trying to understand how we work this out for the client so that it's an easy experience, so that it's satisfying, so that it does credit to Star Trek, and so that it sits within, the experience that Christie's wants to offer, which is the best possible auction experience you can create.
One of the best episodes of Star Trek: The Next Generation was something called The Inner Light. And Picard gets zapped by this alien ray, and in a heartbeat, he lives the memories of a man who had lived on a dead planet, who died 1,000 years ago. And in that life, he raises a family, gets married, and he learns to play a flute. Then he wakes up and he's back on the Enterprise.
This was an amazing find because this is a spacesuit. We talked about the EV suits and stuff. This was a spacesuit that was used by D. Kelly. In fact, we have behind here is a tag that says Kelly, or it's written Kelly right here. You can see that. This was used on an episode called The Tholian Web, and here's the helmet that went on top. So this was actually used by a cast member. So we think it's really cool. We were very excited when we found it.
Kirk Enterprise.
Scott here, sir.
Prepare to beam over a full security squad on my orders.
Aye, aye, Captain.
Captain, there's no sign of life aboard this vessel.
Odd. Mr. Spock, very odd.
The birth of Star Trek can be credited to one man, Gene Roddenberry. Gene's idea of a Western meets outer space, or a wagon train to the stars, as it was originally coined, was a concept of the future and was ironically a concept way ahead of its time. Each week, viewers tune in to be captivated by tales of far-off galaxies and other life forms on distant planets. The real genius, however, was Gene's dedication and the writer's ability to tackle the social issues of the time.
Excuse me, Captain Kirk.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Scott.
What a charming negress. Oh, forgive me, my dear. I know that in my time some use that term as a description of property.
But why should I object to that term, sir? You see, in our century, we've learned not to fear words.
I went to Gene Roddenberry and I said, Gene, can I have a few minutes with you? He said, certainly, come in. I said, it won't take much time. I just want to tell you something that I understand. I know what you're doing. And he goes, oh? And I said, yes. You're writing morality plays, and you put it in the 23rd century. And he sat back and he roared. And then he said, shh, they haven't figured that out. And I thought that was the most wonderful thing, because then I realized that these were the adventures and the stories that he wanted to tell of the human condition.
Gene Roddenberry led a life as adventurous as the very characters he's credited for creating. He was a decorated pilot in World War II and even served as a police officer in Los Angeles. He went on to become a successful writer in the booming television era of the 1960s. In 1964, he created the Star Trek pilot The Cage, which was dismissed as being too cerebral for network television. Gene reworked his show, and in 1966, NBC gave Star Trek a second chance, and a legend was born.
The very reason for the existence of our starships is contact with other life. Although the method is beyond our comprehension, we have been offered contact.
Star Trek is, and always has been, the specific vision of Gene Roddenberry, which deals with a very uplifting, positive outlook of the future. In the future, things are going to be better. Racism is going to be gone. War and poverty and disease are going to be gone. It's going to be a time when people can pursue a better quality of life and can pursue exploration, and it's a very hopeful time.
How many others have you done this to? What gives you the right to hand out life and death?
The same right that brought you here. The need to know new things.
We came in peace.
And you may go in peace.
It's all about how to live an ethical existence. And people respond to this, especially young people who are still idealistic, who haven't had to make that many compromises in their lives yet.
You have yet to embrace either patience or logic. You remain impulsive carnivores.
Yeah? How about war? Disease, hunger. Pretty much wiped them out in less than 2 generations. I wouldn't call that small potatoes.
Star Trek always asks you to think, to say, what would you do if you were placed in the same situation?
Everything he came up with back in the 60s was kept alive to the very end.
In 1991, Gene Roddenberry passed away. He did, however, live long enough to enjoy the great success of Star Trek The Next Generation, and his vision of the future has endured to this day.
As much as I admire George Lucas and Steven Spielberg, I don't know where sci-fi would have been if it hadn't been for Gene Roddenberry and Star Trek.
Roddenberry was a very smart guy, way ahead of his time in terms of understanding human nature. Brilliant.
Gene did the extraordinary thing of creating a philosophical and moral set of, an ethical set of benefits for people.
By putting it in the future, Gene was able to talk about race prejudice, which you otherwise couldn't talk about. He was able to talk about gender prejudices, which you otherwise wouldn't be able to talk about.
Well, a man of great vision, after all, wasn't he? Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's self-evident now.
He wanted to say something through those stories, and you know, a lot of popular entertainment doesn't even bother with that. You know, let's just do something glamorous, exciting, beautiful, sexy, whatever. But Gene cared about the content. And that lasted all the way through.
This is not a ship of war. This is a ship of peace.
Well, I would like to think that we did our best to keep his vision of the future alive in all the shows and films that we've done.
Back in the warehouse, the auction specialists continue their search.
Basically, we're here to help with the Akudas in any way we can. The scale of what we have here, I mean, just the crates that we have in this warehouse to go through and make the decision of whether or not they want to put it in the sale. And yeah, I mean, the costumes they have, I mean, there's thousands upon thousands of them.
Okay. We'll get that down. We'll pull this out and get that bit down for you so you can decide on that.
Okay, my sense is we'll take this piece, but not that, but let's take a look at it.
We'll help with the packing, we'll arrange the shipping. It's a long process, and it goes back to New York, and it gets unpacked again when it reaches New York, and then it gets photographed to get put in the catalogue, and then it gets taken to the sale room and put on display, and then it gets sold. But this initial process will take a couple of months.
I think we're doing well. It's just there's such a large amount to go through. I mean, it's just there's so much stuff. Oh, nice. They use this in the motion picture as well, right?
Yeah, and in Star Trek 6.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Nice.
Klingon battlecruiser.
A Romulan warbird.
Yes, it is. That's an
Designed by Andy Corbett and built by Greg Jean. Very good.
All right. Want me to pull that cloth off?
Yeah.
Can you tell me what it is, Mike?
It's the hero model for Deep Space Nine.
I think we'll take this one.
You like that one?
Yeah, I think it's a good one.
This is an amazing artifact. This is the Hero 6-foot Enterprise from Star Trek The Next Generation.
Nothing we want.
Yes, actually we do.
What is it? Do you need a flashlight?
Yes, we want this.
What is it?
This contains the power supplies and the controls for the Hero 8-foot Enterprise from Star Trek The Motion Picture. This is the Starship Enterprise from several of the Star Trek movies.
There's been very, very few Star Trek models in the auction market, very few that have exchanged hands. So these are really the most iconic models from Star Trek. And having such a wide range of them as well makes sure that all of the fans can have a go at all different levels and all different price levels. So yeah, I certainly expect the Enterprise models to do really, really well. I think the great thing about the Enterprise models is A, their role in Star Trek, but also some of them have been made by Industrial Light and Magic, who also make the models for Star Wars. And to have something made by those model makers is something that is very exciting for collectors.
Obviously, there are ship models which is a lost art. I mean, they don't use ship models for that stuff anymore. They use CGI. So these ship models are the details just absolutely gorgeous.
So the fact that we have all these models that have been made over all these years, they're really pretty rare now. I mean, it really is an incredible thing to collect.
I am Locutus of Borg. Resistance is futile. Your life, as it has been, is over. From this time forward, you will service us.
Hundreds of craftsmen designed and constructed the various wardrobes, props, and sets, which made up the Star Trek universe. Dozens of makeup artists transformed us from everyday people to the many alien species like the all-too-familiar Klingons or Borg. The characters that have become part of American folklore, like the ever-logical Vulcans, are now all permanent fixtures in the hearts and minds of any of us who have found a home in the Star Trek universe. And let's not forget to mention a certain starship named Enterprise, without which we could never have traveled to strange new worlds.
Let's go.
From the largest set pieces and models to the smallest prop, each item in this auction holds special meaning for many people.
The things that people have celebrated for 40 years are available. Lots of people are going to be able to touch and hold things that they thought they'd never see.
It's about recognizable emotional value. I sound like an auction expert now. Recognizable emotional value. REV. Some have it, some don't. You know, if you're going to get Picard's uniform, that has REV. If you're going to get the headband that Spock wore in Star Trek IV Save the Whales, that's got high REV value. Everybody remembers that headband. Tribbles. Those things are going to go for a lot of money because they have high recognizability, emotional value.
I guess these things will bring people a lot of pleasure to own them. I mean, I have bits of memorabilia which are significant to me and meaningful, you know, things that have belonged to other actors and so forth.
I think it's obviously for Star Trek fans, you know, throughout the world.
Obviously, if the alternative is all this stuff gets thrown away, I'd rather see fans get it who can cherish it and take care of it and have it live on that way.
Maybe that's a good thing that they were auctioned off because they'll be loved, they'll be cherished, they'll be looked after.
I think it's just fine. Series is over. Put it to some good use.
Where's Mr. Okuda? I demand to speak to him immediately. Ooh. We've got the sticky painted hero version.
We actually brought in a colleague of ours. His name is Dave Rossi. He worked on Star Trek for many years. He's associate producer on Star Trek Enterprise, and he knows the subject well. We've brought him in to free us up so that we can say, okay, go research this. You know, pull out the DVDs, take a look, make sure this is this Vulcan costume was used in, you know, Star Trek 3 and not 4 or whatever, which of course are, you know, things that we can do, but extremely time consuming. And Dave's great because he's very well organized and he knows the material, so it's great.
This is a stunt tricorder. We're trying to track down where it was introduced. We know it's Voyager. We're just trying to figure out what season of Voyager.
A tricorder is a device that, you know, to be honest with you, I'm not exactly sure what it does. It takes readings and allows us to progress the plot.
Pulse and blood pressure are normal. I'm getting hyperactive fibrogenic activity. This is odd.
What is it? So it can kind of read virtually anything that you want it to read. In fact, the tricorders are probably used a little too much on the show.
Mr. Spock, find something? Adjusting my tricorder to register for silicon. Interesting.
There was something called Phase 2. It was the second Star Trek television series that didn't go. It was like 3 weeks out of being in front of the camera, and they pulled the plug, and they made Star Trek the motion picture because a little film called Star Wars came out. And so Paramount said, oh, well, you know, we have this property called Star Trek, why don't we make a motion picture? So in here are some outlines of the stories that were going to be for the next television series, Phase 2. A lot of those stories were redone and modified for the second season of Star Trek: The Next Generation.
Impossible.
What would a Starfleet officer be without his costume? Wardrobe in the future takes a creative vision. The costumes of Star Trek identify each character and enhance the visual spectacle on the screen.
Oh, Bob Blackman, he had like the hardest job of anybody. It's hard enough to be a wardrobe designer on a regular show. But now imagine where every week you have to come up with wardrobe for different species every week. And you have to think up brand new stuff every week.
The script never gave you a lot of description, which I'm thankful for, because then I wouldn't have to sort of fight preconceived notions of what they should be, whereas I could become much more of the creative force by saying, you know, these guys seem sinister in this way, or they, you know, this guy seems smooth and sort of oily, and maybe he's like a used car salesman, or maybe he's like a, you know, a hired gun, or maybe he's, you know, I could take it in another way that sort of would be my interpretation of it.
So when you think about Bob Blackman and his imagination, huh? All these people, you know, different species, different shapes, sizes, huh?
But the Deans, these are organ-eating aliens. What does an organ-eating alien wear? Right? 7 of 9.
Along with the traditional Starfleet uniforms, we had dress uniforms, and we had spacesuits for when they were outside the ship.
This is the helmet, I believe. Helmet, vacuform, plastic helmet. It's a jumpsuit with a jacket, gray plastic tubing, vacuform, buckles at sides, LEDs, and there's a battery pack in the back.
You know what I never understood about the costumes? Where were the pockets?
There are no pockets.
No pockets. I'm so accustomed to pockets. It's tough.
And for Quark, that was difficult not to have pockets.
We had nothing in our pockets. We had no place to put our hands. Where'd you put all your stuff? But the shoes were comfortable.
The cosmic cheerleader outfit? Yeah. The only good thing about that outfit was that the boys were wearing them too. I wasn't the only one in a micro miniskirt. There were some guys walking around in miniskirts too, so I didn't feel quite as bad because I figured I looked better than they did in them.
The spacesuits were a bit much. I do remember a lot of this, a lot of the Picard maneuver where we all had to pull down, and because Rick Berman and Blackman were obsessive about wrinkles in the uniform, and it was.
And it would be, he might be having just sat in the captain's chair, usually, or at a desk chair. And because of the spandex, when you sit, just like my t-shirt, when you sit, it would ride up like that. So he would, just as he would sit, would grab the fold and just pull it down so that it would be picture perfect. So when they pushed in, he had this perfect image. It was brilliant.
The costume that we really hated was the costume from Star Trek, the motion picture. You know, that spandex, body-tight outfit, you know. One of the outfits was one piece with the shoes attached.
And it was kind of a monochromatic colors. They were going to all be gray, and they decided it looked awful, and then they got the beige and the bronze.
The zipper came up the back, and then under the armpit and over the shoulder. Grown men and women couldn't answer Mother Nature's call without our dressers following us into the men's room or the ladies' room.
That sounds like a horror story. You suppose there's any truth in it?
We said, if we have to go through that indignity again, there won't be a Star Trek II. And that's why you saw the design of the wardrobe change from Star Trek, the motion picture, to Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan.
You can't be serious. The thing is virtually made out of stone. Help it. Treat it. I'm a doctor, not a bricklayer. You're a healer. There's a patient. That's an order.
It's hard for me to think of Star Trek as being over 40 years young. I have vivid memories of my first days on the set, reading my first lines and reluctantly saying farewell when it all ended. Little did any of us know then how global and far-reaching this little TV show would grow to become. I still remember putting on my first set of Vulcan ears. It was uncomfortable, but within a short period of time, these little ears would go on to become one of the most familiar images of modern science fiction. They're instantly recognizable. The collaborative effort delivered throughout all these episodes and films is truly amazing. Writers, Set designers, prop and model makers, directors, cast members, everyone behind the scenes had an undeniable role in making Star Trek the global success it has become.
Wrong! Assistant manager for policy and clientele. Reporting for work, brother.
What? Did you think you could just walk back in here and get your old job back?
Actually, I'm a spy, working for Starfleet. But don't tell anyone.
Federation's more desperate than I thought. Michael Westmore is a dear, dear man who I met from the very first day. He created not only the Ferengi, but the talking box that was my first performance. And that took 5 hours of makeup. And he applied it. So the first person really I ever met or spent time with was Michael Westmore. And how he was able to create thousands of different makeups, I have no idea. But he did. And he deserves all the credit that he gets.
There's lots of things in nature. In fact, I drew on Earth and nature for almost absolutely everything. Didn't try to think out outer space, something with 10 different eyes. It wasn't like looking at something really bizarre. You were kind of familiar with it. There's a Romulan forehead. Box them. Romulans are fast. Fine, you want to do a Romulan? Okay, send them in. We got foreheads, we got ears. When you're working in a studio and a show as aggressive as this was, you had to be on your toes all the time. It had to work. You're getting paid to be creative. You're getting paid to do a job. Tomorrow morning, the producer wants some sketches on his desk, and I can't go in and say, I didn't feel like it. Didn't feel it great. Well, and they come. It's surprisingly enough, you probably would design the exact same thing a week later as you would now.
Resistance is futile.
Here I did his forehead, and it's just that he had such a long neck, and we hadn't done this before, that I thought, what about if I do some kind of a shoulder thing? So that's what I did. I sculpted from here to here, and we made those shoulders. That's why all the Cardassians. That's how the Cardassians got their shoulders, because Mark Alimo had a big neck. And we're talking about the shoulders that go down. Yeah. And here's the face. This was the one that I designed for the Klingon on Enterprise, the first one you see in the pilot. Klingons, there were no rubber pieces. They painted people brown and for the original Klingons. And that was it. There was no foreheads, there were no noses, there was no teeth. So I created that with Worf, and then we went on from there.
You know, you always drink alone. It wouldn't hurt you to seek out a little companionship.
I would require a Klingon woman for companionship. Earth females are too fragile.
This is basically like Brent's box almost, with all his gold powder in it. This makeup would be literally packed into his skin, and then the gold powder would be packed into that grease. Brent's hair was lighter on the edges. You take this with some water, and you go like that, and then I'd brush it into his hair, and this would also take the gold out of the hair, if I had any little extra powder that was over it. I've had a makeup lesson in Data.
Fascinating.
We've been here nearly 3 months working on it, so it's a large project with a great deal of property to take care of.
We organized trucks, 5 so far, to take it all back, and in this case, they're shipped to New York, and there's 2 photographers working round the clock, I'm told, to get the photographs done in time, because there is a catalog deadline, a printer's deadline, which I don't remember what it is, but it's not far away.
And we're sending out the 5th truck. There's everything in this truck. There's models, there's furniture, there's phasers, there's rifles, there's paintings, there's everything imaginable is on this particular truck. What we're looking for is the transporter, so that we can transport all this to New York just by going.
There's still so much of their work to be done in the galaxy, Spock. Mr. Sulu, break us out of orbit and continue to our next assignment.
Here we are at the warehouse in the Bronx, and we've got all of the things that have been shipped from Paramount in Los Angeles to us, and it's all got to be photographed, every bit of it. Well, every Christie's auction has its own catalog. Christie's produces a lot of catalogs every year. Each catalog usually illustrates every piece in the sale. My job is to document the piece, show it in the round, so that anybody who's interested in it can get an idea of what it really looks like.
Bring it in close, not on the edge. Bring it in close, right.
When you're ready. I'm ready.
Okay.
Status of shields. Back to 48%, Captain.
Mr. Forge, I may have to take us out of the nebula. I want all the power you can give me.
Direct hit, Deck 9.
Damage report.
Structural latching system integrity breached.
Prepare to take us out of here, number one.
The larger models in general take a lot more time than the smaller ones. I took 2 shots of it, and I spent a total of 3 hours on it, which is a while, but it's not too bad considering how large an object it is.
Fire up the engines, half impulse till we clear the nebula, then punch it up to warp 9. Ready phasers, load forward torpedo bays. Engage.
Trekkie, or Trekker, as some would prefer, is a term which describes the most dedicated and die-hard of Star Trek fans. As the years have progressed, so have the love and desire for Star Trek. If one is looking for evidence, one need look no further than any number of Star Trek conventions which take place in most corners of the world on any given weekend. It's at these conventions that fans get a chance to come face to face with some of their favorite characters and live out lifelong fantasies, usually dressed as their favorite Klingon or their favorite Starfleet officer. Without these dedicated and vibrant fans, Star Trek would have no doubt faded into history long ago.
We are at the Las Vegas Star Trek Convention. It is the 4th leg of our worldwide tour. And we've brought a whole bunch of terrific highlights from the upcoming auction. Well, you know, I think coming to the Star Trek conventions is really, it's direct marketing to the fans. And I think, you know, there's a lot of different segments of people that are going to love this kind of stuff and are going to buy this kind of stuff. But the reality is the community that supported the franchise for 40 years is really at the core of it. And so coming to the shows, it's goodwill, it's relationship building, it's giving them sort of the first peek of all of this, which, you know, I think that they are owed. This show's actually particularly amazing because we have unveiled our newly minted, hot off the presses catalog. Mike and Denise Okuda wrote not only phenomenal cataloging, but amazing, funny, anecdotal footnotes. So it really is the most incredible visual journey through all of Star Trek, I think, out there.
You speak of Christie's, known as a human place of commerce, where things of great value on this planet are sold to those who truly appreciate them.
When you work on a show like Star Trek, you get an audience that's quite different than if you're working on a show like The Cosby Show or Cheers. Those shows had far, far larger audiences than we did, won far more awards than we did, but the fan base was nowhere near as passionate.
The black one is Mr. Data, and that's Lieutenant Tasha Yar, and that's the next generation.
of Starfleet poodles. We have had another set before that. So we've had a lot of poodles.
Hey, Data. Don't talk like that now, come on.
I hadn't encountered people like this before. But the more I encountered them, the better I liked them.
They come from all walks of life. They're not some imbecilic little people running around who need to get a life. They are human beings of great quality.
Dave Bluestein is Spock and Alexander from Plato's Stepchildren.
People ask us, are you embarrassed to go out in public? Absolutely not. This is who we are. We're Star Trek fans. There's nothing to be embarrassed about. You know, I have a full-time job. She has a full-time job. We all have real lives, but this is playtime.
We're really, at least to my mind, we're all here ultimately celebrating Gene Roddenberry's vision. And we're in this kind of an infectious spirit that pervades that enterprise, that brings, no pun intended, that brings us all together. Yeah.
Star Trek allows everyone, regardless of economic background or anything, to have a hobby, and it's a great hobby.
You know, they're very loyal, they're very warm, you know, people. I mean, it's people.
You've got Star Trek fans that may dress up as Klingons and Vulcans and wear weird things. But you've got, you know, football fans who paint their faces and they've got their hats with the 2 beers on it and all that. You know, they wear a costume.
And that's a very good analogy, the connection between Star Trek and people dressing up in football or baseball uniforms.
You've got the guys who ride their Harleys on the weekend that have the long beards and wear their vests and their chaps and all that. That's a costume.
Let's give them all a big round of applause, please.
Because without the folks turning it on, without the folks supporting it, talking about it, sharing it with each other, then there is no Christie's auction. You see what I mean?
I mean, to sit there and watch this auction as it's going on, it's going to send chills up your spine.
It's a piece of Star Trek history. I mean, it would be so great to own it.
Oh, if I had all the money in the world, if I were Bill Gates and I could buy whatever I wanted, oh God, a captain's chair maybe?
Yeah,
that would work.
Something that Patrick Stewart wore.
Oh yeah, or something of Jonathan Frakes's.
Really?
We had fans from Australia, from Asia, from Latin America, from Europe, and of course from all over the United States. So it is a global phenomenon.
And so here we are, celebrating the 40th anniversary of Star Trek with FedCon 15, The Undiscovered Country.
But it was about a year or two after cancellation that the convention phenomenon began. So I've been at it for a good 35 years now.
I love you all. Thank you.
Germany, please forgive me, Germany was one of our largest conventions.
Welcome to FedCon!
For example, I wrote a song for the Beatles, Let It Be. It's in Klingon, Bom Bom Wee. Bom Bom Wee, Bom Bom Wee, Bom Bom Wee, Bom Bom Wee. Nite Bom 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 Wee, Bom Bom Wee.
What in the name of... One of the things that's consistent about a Star Trek convention is you know that you're going into an environment that people have chosen to come to because of their affection for the show or for the franchise.
It works. It's got all the thingies. Even makes noise.
Well, there's a saying that Trekkers started in 1969, 1970 on. Star Trek lives. They made it live.
I'm picking up a Polaron beam. We're being scanned.
Think good thoughts. Shields to maximum. Stand by all weapons.
My God.
During the mid-90s, Star Trek had 2 series in production and a feature film about to be released. The height of its popularity, for sure. It was as if the more Star Trek people got, the more they wanted.
Well, what the hell are you still doing here?
Sir?
You've been offered the Melbourne.
I've decided not to pursue that commission at this time.
She's a fine ship, Will.
Yes, but she's not the Enterprise.
The most popular question I ever used to get over and over again was, why is Star Trek so popular? Why is it so enduring? Why is it so popular all around the world?
I'm in show business, and yet all my life I've always hoped that, in addition to entertaining, which is primarily what we're committed to do, we're entertainers, but I always wanted to believe that along with that entertainment, we could have a modest little ambition, perhaps, that we could also change the world.
Something about Gene Roddenberry's vision connected with an audience, and it continues to this day. I mean, Star Trek's, you know, it's a cliche, but it's on somewhere every day on somebody's channel.
I have letters that I receive from people, some of them extraordinary, in their comments about what Star Trek did for them.
The fact that Uhura was in that place, fourth in command, going where no man or woman had gone before, made people say, yes, if she can do it, I can do it.
There's no response on any frequency, sir.
Certainly, Star Trek has influenced Americana. It's certainly influenced the lexicon of, you know, of the world. I mean, you can't go anywhere and somebody doesn't know what beam me up Scotty means.
Or what warp speed means, or what a photon torpedo is, or a Klingon. These are part of the American vernacular.
Live long and prosper. Make it so.
Scotty, beam us up fast.
Engage!
There's something very comforting in familiarity, and it's had all these incarnations, and I think it means a great deal to people.
And I don't think there's anything like it, because if you even look at medical shows or legal shows, I don't know a lot of doctors and lawyers who watch doctors and lawyers shows, but almost every scientist I've ever known loved Star Trek.
You're the science officer. Why aren't you, well, doing whatever a science officer does at a time like this?
I am, Doctor. I am observing the alien.
Well, at least somebody agrees with us. He's an alien.
Sci-fi is a way of thinking, you know, thinking, deep thinking about the possibilities.
We all live on the same planet. We all grow up looking up the stars going, what's up there? You know, everyone has those questions. Whether you live in Africa, Asia, Europe, doesn't matter. You know, everyone thinks that at one point in time.
So it's got this global success. Obviously, it has it for many reasons, but foremost among them is its extraordinary premise. It's all rooted in the truth. And what is the truth, as Einstein would have said, but our imagination.
And I continue to believe that's one of the reasons why the series has survived. They are about something. And most of the things they were about are as pertinent today as they were 20 years ago, 40 years ago, when Gene began writing.
We survived, as will humanity survive. As long as there's a handful of you to keep the spirit alive, you will prevail.
And it's kind of rare that that happens in entertainment. So that's something for all of us to be proud of, who had any association with Next Generation or with the other incarnations of Gene's vision of Star Trek.
Generally, a view at Christie's is between 5 and 7 days. This is particularly short just because
this is a rotating gallery and there's always stuff coming in and out of here. So we basically had 4 days to set it up. It will be on view for 4 days, comes down, and then we have the sale.
Well, we get our regular sales, but this obviously takes a lot longer to set up because it's more complex. There are many lots. I mean, 1,000 lots is a lot of lots to have in one sale. And we've had to recreate a lot of things in terms of the sets, etc. So clearly that's more of a logistical setup time.
It's been a test. I mean, there's, again, so much volume for this kind of sale that bringing this in and staging it and lighting it up and making it look really fabulous, because it's not just about having access to it, but it's really like a curated show. It's like an exhibit. It's like going to a museum. So it is installed in a way that really makes it look its best.
And in fact, when I was walking down when we were finishing a setup, there were a couple of guys, I think they were from the company that's been doing the load-in with us. And they said, yeah, and then they're taking it down in like 2 days. Can you believe that? And it was just fun because in the end, that's what we're about. We take all the measures we need to make it look as special as we can imagine it, and then we take it down, and it's gone.
Nice and easy. You gotta walk around the piece. I know Gil would see that. Somebody set the post. Tell me when to come down. All right. Oh, there you go. There's loading. There you go. You guys gotta have faith in me.
This sale probably is 3 times the size of any other sale we've ever worked on before. Just the size that it's taking up, the time that it's taking up, the amount of people who are working on this sale within Christie's is just phenomenal. And everyone's been doing an amazing, amazing job.
Like I said before, you see this stuff on TV week after week, and you always was wondering what it'd be like to just reach up and look at it or get really close to see it with your own eyes, and here it is.
And that they have things from the original Star Trek is just the best. I mean, all the other stuff, Enterprise and everything, saw them all, loved them all, but Star Trek, the original, is the one.
I love to look at all of this because I've seen these episodes, I can't tell you how many times.
You know, after working so hard to get this up, the best thing about it today has been that people are so excited, and their little kids are excited, and it's nice to actually see that there's a good reaction because it makes you feel better about the sale.
"40 years of memories, an historical collection of props, models, wardrobe, and behind-the-scenes memorabilia, all destined for a new future, their values based on their roles from the past. Just how valuable will these items prove to be? When we return, we'll find out as the stage is set and the greatest auction in the universe begins."
I hope I'll be seeing the two of you tomorrow at 1200 hours.
Why?
Why? Haven't you heard there's going to be an auction of some of the galaxy's rarest and most valuable antiquities? Here. Find something you like and make a bid with all that latinum you got stashed under your bed. Shh.
So, after months of planning and preparation, the wait is over. This partnership between high-end auctioneering and high-end entertainment has come to fruition. The lots have been selected, photographed, and cataloged, and placed on display for all to see as a single collection one last time. Where will all these great treasures representing the last 40 years end up? Your guess is as good as mine.
I'm looking forward to see what kind of noise this auction makes.
I think it's exciting.
I think it will stimulate a kind of multi-leveled, multifaceted response. It should be quite successful.
Historically, in terms of television, yeah, these things are important.
I'm pretty sure from all indications that it's going to exceed the expectation.
So we're going to start with our first lot. Everything will be shown up on the screen. We're starting with Next Generation Movies, Manuscripts and Production Art. And for the first lot, this is the call sheets and costumer notes. How about $300 to start this? Okay, $300. Gentleman's bid at $300, $350. At $350 on my left now at $350, $400 online. $1,200, very last row at $1,200, not yours now. At $1,200 then, it's against the room, it's against the internet bidder at $1,200. Offered selling for $1,200. 261. And that's how you start an auction.
Fascinating.
I guess the interesting thing is when you make a film or television show, the props, the costumes, those are all tools for production. Mm-hmm. And you don't really think of it beyond that. So to have these things preserved, to have these things going into the hands of people who are going to love it, it's a bit of validation for us. Yeah. This is the hero model of Space Station Deep Space Nine. It was in every episode of the television series Deep Space Nine. It's designed so that you can rake the light across it, and the detail comes out of it, and you get the sense that this isn't just a 6-foot model, but it's hundreds and hundreds of feet in diameter. Nowadays, many visual effects are done with computer-generated images. So the role of visual effects miniatures is steadily shrinking.
And the Deep Space Nine model, I think, is truly fabulous model. How about $4,000 to start? $4,800 on this side now. Yeah, that's my girl. $20,000, $50,000, $60,000, $70,000, $80,000, $90,000, $100,000, $110,000. Selling for $110,000.
It's a Klingon bird of prey. I think this is like the most photographed model in Star Trek. I mean, it was in so many different incarnations. They put a price on these things, but what we're really hoping is that there's a Star Trek fan, that this piece, they grew up watching it, and this is their favorite Starship. We're just really hoping it goes to the right person.
And we're going to start with the Klingon bird of prey. $40,000, $50,000 with Kate. $70,000, $80,000, $90,000, $100,000, $150,000, $200,000. It's getting hot in here. Last chance for $260,000. Laura.
I thought that too. I'm like, what would I want from this auction? But see, I have to go back in time and think, I could have had anything from these damn catalogs.
I have a storage room with nothing but Star Trek stuff in it. All of it, my own. It's not stuff that I've nicked. I didn't walk away with things. Maybe I should have done.
I have a few souvenirs. I wish I'd taken more, actually. Now they're selling it, I wish I'd taken more.
I would have taken this little Tootsie if I could have. Of course, I can't get away with that.
Don't be me. I was offered any number of the original costumes, and I know, I had more of them and, time to move on.
And I had some personal things that I let go, for which I regret now.
Most of the items I'll be bidding for today are costumes from Next Generation and some scripts.
Oh, some of the clothing is, I think, for me at least, is most interesting. Some of the costumes.
Well, the Enterprise. I would like to just get my hand up to say I bid on it, but I have no chance of winning it. But that would just be cool just to bid on it.
I really wanted to get the backlit Cardassian symbol.
Oh, there's a few pieces that I'm interested in having.
I spent probably, I don't know, twice as much as I expected to. It's crazy.
we expected the prices to be higher than the estimated, but not this. Not that much.
There's phone bidders, there's online bidders. You don't know where the bids are going to be coming from.
I'm selling online for $4,500. Sold.
I can't bid too much. My wife will do things that will be unspeakable to me if I go too high, so. Ask Soul. Soul, are you scared of her?
Yeah, I'm scared of her
He's
too.
scared of her too.
She's very scary.
We're both scared.
I think wardrobe really has a high value, will have a high value, because it's stuff that characters wore.
These were actually used in the 1964 and or 1965 pilots, and they originally were color blue, and with time they faded and changed color to purple.
I was one of the people who really hated my uniform. I was not a spandex fan, and I would have been happier in sort of loose. A nice Armani suit would have suited me.
Lot 686, late season version of Captain Picard's Starfleet uniform. Bid online at $3,000. At $4,000, bid in the room at $4,42, $4,500, $7,000 a new bidder, $9,000. For $9,000, then was selling to the online bidder. Sold at $9,000, $3,405.
I did see that the Dixon Hill trench coat and the fedora got a reasonable price, and I actually think, had I been in the room, I might have bid on that. If only it's something that I could actually wear.
I like that one. This time get going, and I'm going to get this one.
$1,000 then. Our youngest bidder here, $1,100. A new bidder here in the room, $1,200. She's back. My little friend's bid, $2,800.
This is Helen of Tribeca, and a third-generation Trekkie, starting with my mother, through me, and I've passed it on to her. But come back here. Oh, now she's shy. She wasn't shy when she was bidding.
You can't bid against her. I mean, look at her. She has that lovely smile on her face, and smart move.
Gonna sell for $600.
I did. I won the Tosk mask. It's sort of the surrounding scales, not the actual face, but I believe it was actually worn by the actor, which is way cool, and really just a blessing because I got it for $900, and nothing in that room is going for under $2,000, so it's like a score for the little guy, you know.
$900 still ladies bid at $900 that it's selling all through for $900. Yay!
Like I kind of feel like throwing up. I'm so excited.
Bones, what is it? Answer me. Jim, this ship is dissolving. My hand just passed through a man and a table. Get back up here on the double.
978 is next. Dr. McCoy's spacesuit from the Tholian Web at $40,000, $42,000, $55,000, $75,000, $85,000, $100,000, $120,000. Selling to the phones for $120,000.
Sold. Thank you, Jamie.
Yeah, these prices were higher than even we thought. And he's rich, and it was still too much money for him.
I'm not rich. I'm a poor man, but in the middle of my big bid, one item I really wanted, number 110. What happens? In front of everyone, my wife calls. Talk about trying to keep tabs on me. She must have a mental link that I'm bidding $4 to $5 grand.
Could be some form of space madness we've never heard of.
Okay, 984 is next for the small battle-damaged USS Reliant miniature model. $24,000, gentleman's bid at $24,000, all through selling for $24,000.
Realistically, I didn't think I'd have a chance. I thought it was going to go to a museum or, you know, a huge prize private buyer. But I stuck to my guns. I stuck in there, I dug in, and I got her. And she's mine, she's coming back with me.
After the auction, Andy just had his head in his hands for about half an hour, and his face was just red. The realisation what he'd just done. Just won the Reliant.
Sold online.
I think the only people that hate the online bidders, there seems to be us against them.
All done then? Online?
Selling to the telephone. Sold.
The phone and the internet I wish were disconnected, to be quite honest. I always applaud when somebody in the room wins a piece, and if I'm bidding against somebody in the room, I'll tend to bail out quicker than I will with somebody on the phone or the internet, just because I don't know, there's some sort of camaraderie, I guess, going on inside the room.
Lot number 357. The Starship Voyager miniature model. Go boldly. 100,000. 105,000. 110, sir. 110,000.
You don't want to lose it for $5,000, do you? I mean, you sit there and you judge. You can tell if the guy on the phone's slowing down, you know he's getting to his limit.
His competitor was a phone bidder on that particular piece, and that guy was probably watching how he was reacting to that, his bids, you know, whereas we're sort of blind against who the phone bidder is. So in some, I suppose you could say he almost had an advantage over us, but he just held the paddle in his aside. Didn't flinch at all.
Last chance. Thank you, sir. Well done.
I found this inside.
Lot 537, Picard's Resican Flute. Have I pronounced that right? 2 pieces in the lot here. There's been a little bit of interest in this.
That damn flute. You'll see.
I want the flute. Captain Picard's flute.
That's why I came and how I got interested in it, was to see if I could pick up the flute.
Everybody I've told that I was coming here, their first question is, are they auctioning off the flute?
That flute's going to go for 10 grand.
And, well, we can start this straight away at $13,000. Any advance now at $13,000? 35,000 online. Last chance at 40,000. Sold at
40,000. It doesn't play. It's not a real flute.
So for the Enterprise A model and power supply, 60,000 with Stephanie, 70,000, 75,000, 90,000, 100,000.
The Starship Enterprise, NCC's 1701A. Now this is where the bridge was, and my seat would have been somewhere just around here. This is what you saw in the movies, and this is the oldest of all the models that we have here in the collection at Christie's.
Selling for $240,000.
Continue fire all phases.
Lot 712, Starship Enterprise D. 5,000 ain't gonna cut it this time, I don't think. 100,000, Jamie's bid. 110,000, Kathy's bidder. 130,000, 150,000, 200,000, 300,000. Don't clap yet.
This is the Hero Starship Enterprise D from Star Trek The Next Generation. The thing that most people notice, of course, is that it is a dramatically different design than the original Enterprise. And Andy Probert, who designed the ship, was under orders from Gene Roddenberry to make sure that you knew that this was a whole generation beyond what Kirk's ship was. It's truly a beautiful piece.
400,000. 450,000. At 500,000, sold for $500,000.
We were totally blown away when the D was sold. I mean, we expected it to do well, but nothing like what happened.
It was astonishing. Yeah, I'm dazzled by what people paid for some of that stuff.
We achieved our goal, and our goal was to, like I said, and I've said it so many times over the months, is to get this stuff into the hands of the fans, because we know that they're going to keep it, they're going to treasure it, they're going to keep it safe. So I think we feel like we've achieved our goal.
Thank you all so much. You have been so patient with us for the last 3 days. Thank you very much.
When we come back, we'll pay a special visit to some of the winning bidders as they share their newly acquired pieces of the Star Trek collection. And finally, we'll conclude our journey as some of the cast and crew share their closing thoughts on the Star Trek family and its enduring legacy. To say the auction was a success would be an understatement. The Christie Star Trek auction broke records for pop culture memorabilia sales. The reality is no one at Christie's or Paramount had any indication the sale would do as well as it did. But it's no surprise either. Fans from all across the globe came to New York. Some bid online and others by phone. The response was overwhelming, to say the least. I guess putting on an auction of this magnitude is a little like the life of Star Trek itself. This auction went where no auction has gone before.
Bids on the telephone then, and I will sell. $9,500.
$4,500.
At $8,000.
Sold it is at $2,000.
At $3,500.
$4,000. Sold online. Sold for $4,800.
Sold.
Sold for $500,000.
With the auction over, all 1,000 lots have found new homes. But to see them for yourself, you might need a passport.
So here we are a couple of months after the auction. We've gathered some of our spoils of war together and managed to get some of the guys together who were there bidding in the action. Some amazing pieces. It's just a handful of them that we got on display today.
One of my key pieces which has come back with me, which I was mildly happy about getting, was the Reliant here, a little baby. I was sure she was just going to escape and I wasn't going to get her, but managed to get her, and she's back here with us now, back home and safe.
The whole thing was amazing. The auctioning off all these pieces, Paramount, and just had a brilliant time.
You know, with all collecting, things are worth what they are worth to the individual who wants them.
Behind me I have my crate that came with all the goods from the Christie's auction, and having it sent over the Atlantic, and it's finally here. We have to find the guns.
If you want something, I know the passion of collecting. I know it. I know when my stomach starts to knot and tighten when I look at something and think, I want that.
Behind me is our ship that we were able to purchase at Christie's. It's the Karima class starship from an episode of Deep Space Nine. Considering that I paid $4,000 for this ship, I think I got a bargain. So I'm very happy with it.
I have my one of my original earpieces, and I think that was touched my heart, because every time I see it, I think healing frequencies open. You know.
I've been fencing or involved with fencing practically my whole life, and it started because of Star Trek. And this is Jean-Luc Picard's fencing outfit. And when it was up for auction, said, have to have this. Well, actually I said it was for my brother, but he's not getting it.
I'm kind of glad this sort of happened, so that people who really wanted to have something from the show, and I'm sure that they looked and thought, what is the most meaningful thing to me? And that they got something meaningful. If they got something that they prized, you know, we don't often get that in life.
Hi, I'm Giles. This is my flat in London. This is also my uniform that I bought from Christie's Star Trek auction. And this is the other uniform I bought. It's the Viceroy uniform from the movie Nemesis.
I'm never going to put on a Star Trek suit again, that's for sure. I do have one. I have the studio, several years ago actually, Rick Berman arranged to present me with one of the last of the captain's suits that I wore. So that's stored away.
This is the one I was looking for. Yes, this is the Captain Picard jacket from the first season. Pretty cool, pretty cool.
My desk was up for sale, and I looked at the catalogue before the auction, and I was, for a moment, very, very brief moment, I was tempted. I thought, wouldn't that be fun to have my desk again and have it always there? And then I thought, well, no, it's not a desk, it's just a prop, it's a piece of, constructed furniture.
So this is my Star Trek room, and it covers all TV series. What we have down here is Data's arm, which we got from the auction, if you have a look in there. Great piece to have. Okay, not only did I get the real Voyager from Christie's, but we also got an Enterprise C. I mean, to have a Voyager and Enterprise is fantastic. To have either one of them, I'd be pleased to have both. Happy guy.
The transporter is one of the things I would have just looked by, but the guy next to me just happened to say, try this, everybody needs to do this at least once, and he's right, everybody needs to slide these slides, I think, who's ever watched the show. But of course I had to go home and record the real sound so I could play with the buttons and make it look official.
Bridge, we've got him.
Sorry, Captain. We had no other choice.
Brings a little Star Trek home to you, just being able to do something like that.
3 years ago, I didn't even know your name. Today, I can't imagine a day without you.
Captain Janeway to the bridge.
When I look back, I have fond memories of working with the cast and crew. And some of my closest friends that I'm in contact with today are from Star Trek. Which just goes to prove that when you travel the universe together, there's a good chance you'll form a bond for life.
I don't think you've lost a thing. And I think you've gained more than you realize. You're happy here. Happier than I've ever known you to be.
There's a sense that you're a member of the Star Trek family, for lack of a better word, and that you're responsible for a certain amount of Roddenberry's legacy and vision, and the relationships of the characters of the shows were very similar, and I think that the relationships of the actors were as well.
The happy memories that I had of that time, and they're largely really very positive, and working with those guys, they taught me to be irreverent and to enjoy laughing.
I loved them all. In the end, when I had to do all those scenes of saying goodbye to them, it was just hell. It was hell.
When I first took command of this post, all I wanted was to be somewhere else. Anywhere but here. But now, 5 years later, this has become my home, and you have become my family.
I enjoyed the crew immensely. I enjoyed, working with very, very talented people. I enjoyed the writing. And the writing was very intelligent. I laughed every day.
I feel very blessed in that my professional colleagues have become, over the years, good personal friends. And, some of them we've lost. Jimmy Doom was a particularly dear friend. I used to call him my favorite drinking buddy.
And in this derivative, mixed with alcohol, it merely deadens certain nerve inputs to the brain.
Oh, well, any decent blend of scotch will do that.
Oh, the irascible Jimmy Doohan, Scotty. He was always blowing off and then coming back and hugging, so you kind of got used to him being that kind of way.
DeForest Kelley was a very sweet man, a very courtly gentleman of the old school.
DeForest Kelley, I loved him very, very much.
By golly, Jim, I'm beginning to think I can cure a rainy day. Can you help? Helped it? I cured it.
I wish that Gene could have, lived another 20 years and seen how his legacy has grown and grown and grown in this way.
In the period of time that I was dealing with the 4 series that I worked on, we produced 620-something hours of television, which is a lot of television. And I think the fact that the franchise is taking a bit of a rest now is going to be good for it.
I think people will be always looking to see if it can't be, sparked into life again. Because as I've said before, the issues, the stories that it has are for all time.
We can't be afraid of the wind, Ensign. Take us to Warp 4.
And for the foreseeable future, the original, the classic series, Next Generation, Voyager, Deep Space Nine, Enterprise, they will go on screening too.
This isn't the end.
You say that with remarkable assuredness. I don't know, maybe if things don't really work out for me, I could, like Brent used to say, we can always put our suits on and we can do bar mitzvahs and, birthday parties and things.
These are the voyages of the starship Enterprise. Its 5-year mission, to explore strange new worlds, to seek out new life and new civilizations, to boldly go where no man has gone before.
Star Trek will live on, that much is certain. In the coming years, a whole new generation of fans will be exposed to the adventures that have kept us coming back for more over and over again. As for future Star Trek stories, they will come. After all, a show that brought so much hope and entertainment can't stay down for long. Thanks for watching. Live long and prosper.